The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Shentel, connecting Virginians to their government. Please welcome Senator Frank Ruff from Southside, Virginia. Good to see you, sir.
Woody, it's a pleasure to be back with you.
Well, I want to congratulate you, first of all, on your re-election as chair of the Rural Caucus. Talk to us a little bit about that organization.
We put together, there used to be caucuses for Southwest, Southside, Valley, but as the numbers changed and more folks were representing Northern Virginia and Tidewater and Richmond area, our numbers in each of those dwindled. So we got together a few years ago and said, let's deal with it as one group and try to keep some force going of keeping the issues of rural Virginia in the forefront of the General Assembly.
So how many members constitute that caucus now?
Well, it's a fair number, but the ones that are able to get to the meetings
Right.
It changes from 10 to 20.
So there's a core group that you can count on.
Sure.
I think we were talking earlier, you've been here at least in the House of Delegates beginning in 1994, and then in 2000 you came to the Senate. I imagine you have seen quite a few changes, especially in terms of technology here.
Very much so. When we first came, everything was on paper, and there was always papers to shuffle. Communications was generally through the mail with constituents. Now, rarely do we get mail. It's 95% of what we hear is from through the internet with email, some phone calls, of course, but the email has become the driving force on communication.
And I take it there are positive and negative impacts to that. I mean, obviously your constituents can communicate with you better, and maybe you get way too much communication sometimes.
Better and faster, but it takes out the filter. When somebody has to sit down and write a letter, sometimes they think through what they're thinking a little bit better than when they can just and then put a stamp on it and send it. But whereas with the internet, you can sit down and punch out something pretty quickly without thinking through all the time.
Right. I take it though, you still get a lot of visitors from your district from time to time during the session?
Oh, sure. There's always a parade of folks coming by, representing one issue or the next. It may be a church day, it may be the Farm Bureau Day, it may be the bank's day, the credit union's day. There's always folks around.
And as I recall, you have the largest senatorial district in the Commonwealth, do you not?
That's correct. It goes, I used to talk about it being 4 times the size of Rhode Island, and I realized that people don't know how big Rhode Island is. It looks kind of small on a map, but so now I just tell them it's across the river from Williamsburg to 7 miles from Martinsville. And then wherever they live in the district, they understand, gosh, that's a long ways from here.
So you have 4 large counties that are in your district and parts of other counties and maybe some cities and towns?
Yes, I have almost 24 towns, I guess, and a piece of the city of Danville, but for the most part it's rural Virginia.
Danville, still very tough economic times there?
They're still having challenges. They have worked hard to change that, but the economy there changed pretty drastically, and they're still pulling themselves up.
That was because, and this is a number of years ago, textile industry left, tobacco industry fell on tough times as well.
Yes, at one time, Dan River Mills had over 6,000 employees. So yes, the whole textile market just evaporated in just a matter of a few years.
So what's happening in terms of workforce development, workforce training in your district?
Well, we have higher unemployment throughout the state than we should. At the same time, we have companies that are begging for skilled employees. Anywhere you go in Virginia to get an electrician or a plumber, you have to wait to get those services. We've got manufacturing where things such as precision machining and welding skills, there are a lot of people that are of the age they can retire, and there aren't people in the pipeline to replace those people. We put so much focus on college, four-year college academic programs. We've led young people to believe that they shouldn't be working with their hands. Well, right now, somebody working with their hands and their mind can make more than most people coming out of college after 4 years.
And how much of the economy in your district is related to farming?
Well, we still have a fair amount of farming. We don't have as many small farms as we used to. Now it's much bigger. Just like the retail world, you don't see the little stores anymore. You see more big box stores, and that's happened in agriculture too. You have to have volume to be able to survive.
What about forestry and timber? Is that a big economic driver?
Big driver, not only in the tree growing of the trees, but also the harvesting, the byproducts of that are big employers throughout the region.
So most of that harvesting of those trees are bought by people throughout the region. I mean, the end product.
Well, they're all over the world. We have great wood that's made into furniture and made into on the high end, and made it into pulp and paper on the low end.
Is it difficult to keep youngsters in the district after they finish high school because there's such a lack of opportunity in terms of employment?
That's one of the challenges we've had over the last generation or two is young people who do get a college education have limited opportunities, so they go to where the jobs are. And that's one of the goals of the workforce training, of moving more towards the skills that are needed in the region. Not that we want to make anybody live in where they grew up, but a lot of people love the roots they have, to be able to be there near their parents and grandparents, and they want to stay in the area, but they have not seen an economic opportunity.
So are there any opportunities at local community colleges, for example, for students to take advantage of some educational opportunities that will result in good jobs?
That's one of the things we're trying to change since the creation of the community college system. Any of the workforce programs have been considered academic programs. So to become a welder, a precision machinist, is a 2-year process. Well, if you look at that program, for welding, of that 2-year period, only 52 hours are actually in the lab learning how to weld. The rest is classroom work. If you focused a young person on 4 or 6 hours a day, you could accomplish that in 6 weeks. If they could then get independent certification by a national organization, that would then mean they could get a job, a well-paying job, very, very quickly.
So what are some of the employment opportunities that currently exist in your district for a young person coming out of high school who doesn't have much of a skill?
Well, in high school, we're trying to get people focused on where they want to go and what they want to be and what they want to do. And in different schools have different levels. In Pennsylvania County, they have moved some of those hand skills into one center for all the high schools, and that's worked well. It gets them prepared to go into that precision machining program at Danville Community College. When they finish that program, whether it goes, there are jobs available, whether it's BMW in the Lynchburg area, whether it's Rolls-Royce over in the Hopewell area, or locally in the Danville area, there are jobs that are good paying jobs.
So is BMW and Rolls-Royce one of the two major employers, private employers in the area?
They're near the area. A lot of people drive
I
somewhere
see.
to get
I
jobs, but it's not impossible to go from the Pennsylvania County area to the city of Lynchburg. It's on the eastern side. It's a little bit too far to drive to the Hopewell area, but they understand, and they have to make some changes then, but they can still be in a part of Virginia that they like and with the outdoor activities that are available.
What about within the district itself, or are there any major private employers?
Well, they are employers. They don't hire as many people as you once had. Dan River Mills at one time had 6,000 employees. You just don't have that kind of manufacturing anymore. You have clean manufacturing, such as the Rolls-Royce plant in Prince George. Microsoft and Hewlett-Packard are both in Mecklenburg County. There are those type jobs, and we're very pleased to have those.
How are your school districts doing, K through 12? I know one of the budget items that the governor talked about last Wednesday night included an increase in funding to K through 12.
Well, we had to cut back when the recession occurred. We have the Constitution we have to follow. We couldn't spend money we weren't taking in.
I want you to repeat that, because I don't think a lot of people understand why the Commonwealth has to balance its budget, but the federal government does not.
We wish you could change that on the Washington level, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But we did have to restrain what was going to the local schools. We're trying to get back to where we need to be. In any process, sometimes you can find good out of the bad, and sometimes we let things continue to occur that maybe we ought to have changed. When you have a recession, a low period, you sometimes go back and look at what you're doing and saying, well, why are we doing this? And we can't afford to do both, so we'll take the most important things. And I think that occurred, but now we need to get back in and put some money back into those programs that are extremely important for our young people to move forward.
Are there any options for parents and students in terms of charter schools in your district?
Charter schools are an interesting thing. I think probably we're on the fringe in the Petersburg and Hopewell area, maybe in the Danville area, but much of the district we're just too far, we're too spread out to be able to draw from without people having to drive 30 miles.
Sure, sure. And of course, there were a lot of reforms over the last couple of years concerning the standards of learning. I assume you were hearing from some parents, teachers, and maybe students about the pressure that was brought to bear as a result of the number of tests and those kinds of things.
Sure, everybody got concerned about the amount of pressure. The goal of the standards was to get young people to the right point at each grade level. When that was not occurring without tests, we put tests on, and that caused everybody to say, well, we can't let anybody fail. We have to do this, we have to do that. And a lot of pressure came down from the superintendents to the principals to the teachers, and that classroom between the teacher and the children became difficult issue. That was never the intent. The intent was
Right.
to evaluate what was happening overall in that classroom. And if you saw a problem where this particular class was having more problems than the class down the hall, then maybe it was time for the principal to come in and say, let's figure out how we can improve things.
How have the counties fared since the recession? Because they rely totally on the real estate tax. I assume that tax has remained flat. I could be wrong. And I assume that real estate values may have been impacted negatively at one point.
Sure, they've all went down all over the state, and they've come back up at various speeds and various levels. But yes, that puts stress for the counties also.
Now, one of the things that has helped your district economically over the last few years is the Tobacco Commission, correct?
That's correct.
And are you still vice chair of the
Yes.
Tobacco Commission? Talk to us about how that commission came to being, what its purpose and objectives are, and how it's working.
Back in the late 90s, the federal settlement with the tobacco companies was to allot a certain amount of money based on sales to each state. We in Virginia worked with the health folks to designate that 10% of that money would go to preventing young people from starting smoking, and 50% of it would go to the counties that were dependent on tobacco to replace the jobs that were expected to be lost. That money has been used as an enhancement to encourage other companies to come to the region, and has been very successful. It's a big chunk of money we put into education, where we have helped fund young people to go get whether at community college level or four-year level college, to get that training, that's education that's needed to. Let me rephrase that: training and
Right,
or
right.
education
Right.
that's needed to move ahead and take care of a family.
So you were, I believe, instrumental in creating some scholarships for students like that, as well as forgivable loans.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Tell us a little bit. I know that in terms of bringing economic opportunity and jobs into your district, you were instrumental in bringing, I think there's a law enforcement hazardous training school in your district, or there was?
The state police training track is at part of the property that used to be at Fort Pickett. We knew that our drivers were not getting the training they needed. They were going to airports and airstrips to learn how a car reacts to slamming on the brakes and things like that. That wasn't the most professional way of doing it. We knew that there was a certain liability if a state trooper was chasing somebody and did something wrong, and how could we change that dynamic. So it was very important once we learned that to have some place to have that training, and now we have a center that's our state troopers, but other law enforcement officers are learning how to better control vehicles. We hope to at some point be able to extend that and do that with emergency vehicles, rescue squad vehicles, fire trucks that are carrying a load of water are awfully hard to handle if something goes wrong.
Talk to us about the impact of the military and veterans in your district.
Well, we have a excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. We have a fair number of veterans, but we have Fort Pickett in the district, so there's some activity there with the National Guard. The federal government has chosen, very slowly they've chosen Fort Pickett to be the place that we will have the training for the State Department's foreign security officers. So that they're in the process of building that now. In a couple of years, they will be rotating people through there at a pretty rapid rate, large numbers of people through there.
So besides Fort Pickett and that endeavor, are there any other military installations in your district?
not in the district, but the district touches on close to Fort Lee. So Fort Lee was very fortunate in the earlier BRAC period.
That's the Base Realignment Commission.
With the realignment, correct, of some other facilities closing, and they were moved to there. There was concern a year ago that that was going to come up again, and so they started losing some folks there. But Fort Lee has been excellent at training, and we hope that they will maintain the level they're at now.
Now there's a program, Virginia Values Veterans, which highlights the importance of our veterans, especially in terms of employment opportunities. Has any of that been instrumental in employment opportunities for veterans in your district?
Yes, the Tobacco Commission created 3 centers of excellence for manufacturing, and one of the outgrowths of that was some equipment for training at the community college in the Emporia area. I asked our education person to reach out to Fort Lee because I believed that they could provide instructors for us because the discipline and the professionalism. And what turned out was that they didn't have that, but what they had were people coming out of the military. And so they asked us, would you be willing to train some of these people at Emporia if we take them down every day? So for I think it was 11, 12-week program, they sent 24 people down. All of them received certification in one of those skills or more than one skill. All of them were offered a job when they came out. I think 17 of them took jobs in Virginia. The others decided that they wanted to go back to the state they came from. So it helped that, but what the military did, what the Army said, this is a great model. We're going to look at doing this across the country. So that made us feel pretty good.
What about certifications for veterans returning from Iraq, Afghanistan, who have a great deal of very practical experience? I guess the easiest example is someone who was a medic,
Correct.
who wants to be hired as an emergency medical technician. Does Danville Community College have a program which would allow credits towards a certification as a result of experience gained in the military?
You caught me off guard. You were too specific in Danville, but most of those skills are transferable. We just don't speak apples and oranges very well.
Right.
We just need to be able to align those skills, what's needed for an EMT personnel or for physician's assistants or nurses or those realms, and just try to change our language so that those skills are useful and works.
So I take it your district was not as adversely impacted as a lot of others who have larger and maybe more military installations in their district in terms of what monies flow through the federal government.
That's correct. Our economy is not strong, but we didn't go down on that particular one.
You and Delegate Rob Bell were selected to give some remarks in response to the governor's State of the Commonwealth address last Wednesday evening. Would you care to summarize your feelings about what the governor had to say?
Well, he had an agenda, a very positive agenda of what he wants to accomplish in the last couple of years of his time. We were all elected by Virginians, and we all need to be working towards what we believe is important for our constituents. We will differ and we will agree. It's most important that we focus on the things we agree on and don't get bogged down on the things we disagree on, and let them in any way temper our enthusiasm to work with the governor on those programs that there is common ground.
Now, you also are chairman of the General Laws Committee in the Senate, and I understand that there's quite a bit of legislation that flows through that committee. Talk to us about the jurisdiction of that committee and the type of work you have to address.
General laws is probably the best way of describing it is just general. We get what nobody else gets. We do things from real estate law to lottery issues to bingo issues to just a wide assortment of bills that don't necessarily fit into other categories like the other committees do.
So it's a pretty big catch basin, so to speak, for legislation that no one else maybe wants or they don't have jurisdiction over.
Well, not quite that bad, but it's close. You have to change gears an awful lot in your thinking. You're thinking about one issue, and then all of a sudden the next bill comes up and it's something completely different.
Now, you're also on the Finance Committee, a very
Yes.
important committee in the State Senate, and you're obviously going to be dealing with a lot of budget issues there. Are there some subcommittees you sit on that you concentrate on certain subject matters?
Well, I serve on the capital outlay and the education committees, but I chair the one that deals with commerce and trade, which covers the realm of agriculture and natural resources and all of the governor's proposals for economic development. So we will have the biggest opportunities in this year's budget. The governor total package of economic development in various pots is about $300 million. And we've got to figure out how to get our arms around that first and then set priorities so that we make sure that we're doing the right thing to accomplish the most.
Yeah, in terms of transportation issues, we always hear about Northern Virginia and the Hampton Roads area, but I'm sure you have transportation-related issues as well.
Their issues are congestion. Our issues are frequently safety. If you look at the number of deaths per X number of miles driven in a county like Lunenburg County or Charlotte County, we have far more deaths than they do in the Fairfax counties. The things that don't appear to be important in Richmond are extremely important in our way. If you have grass growing up high on the side of a two-lane road and something comes running out, a dog, a deer, whatever, that causes the driver to react.
Great. Well, we're going to have to leave it at that. Thank you for being with us, Senator Frank Ruff.
Woody, thank you.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Shentel. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.